I'm your host, Anna, and welcome to a brand new segment of the Crime Bistro podcast, Coffee Chats. Even though I'm not actually having a coffee right now, it's more of a lemon tea type of thing, but that's okay because I already had some caffeine this morning and I definitely do not need any more. Anyway, today we're going to be telling some roommate horror stories, so not our usual content, but I still tried to keep these stories true crime adjacent. And some of them are more on the paranormal side of things since I find those types of stories really interesting. So maybe in the future I will do a full episode just related to telling haunted house stories or something like that. We'll see. I don't have too much of an introduction for these, so I think that we'll just kind of get right into the first one because I am really excited to be sharing something a little bit different with everyone. Okay, so we're starting off pretty tame with this first one, but I honestly just thought it was really funny, so I couldn't leave it out. This one comes from the subreddit, What Are Your Roommate Horror Stories? From Throw It Away for Once, about 7 years ago. And it starts with, a very sheltered roommate I had living downstairs was very open about her singing. She had no shame and talent to match. Singing Cher's Believe was one of her Saturday morning go-tos. Hey, it could be worse, right? Well, maybe. 5 a.m. is just too early for Cher. Can't argue with that one. But what was most disturbing was her Backstreet Boys rendition of I Want It That Way. This is when things get really odd. Maybe she was just trolling me, but she would belt out this tune when she got ready for bed after an evening shift. The odd thing about it was how long she would sing it for. There were nights when I would wake up at 4 a.m. and she was still singing. Just as bad and just as passionate. I had enough. I went downstairs to ask her to wait until morning, but it was completely dark. No lights at all. Even in her room it was dark. 4 a.m. and she's singing her heart out in bed. So I knock and the singing stops. She opens the door all confused and she barely has a voice left. The next morning I apologize for surprising her, but I couldn't sleep with all of her Backstreet Boys singing. She doesn't understand what I'm talking about, but it suddenly occurred to me that she was singing in her sleep every night. So how could I expect her to just not sing in her sleep? Maybe she was trolling me, but for 8 months, this little woman with no friends and no family close by sung Backstreet Boys in her sleep. Okay, so this isn't starting off that bad, but I do want to say that, when I was a kid, my brother used to laugh in his sleep sometimes, and oh my goodness, was that creepy? So I can't even imagine just listening to someone sing terribly all night. And I love that song, but it would get so old so fast. So I feel really bad because obviously there's nothing she could do about it, but still, that would be really, really annoying. All right, so for this next story, I'm going to call this one possibly a spy ? The original post was deleted, but the post comes from about 3 years ago. I moved to the Netherlands to study abroad, and I couldn't find housing, so I stayed in a hostel that was full of other international students having the same trouble finding housing that I did. My roommate was a Bulgarian girl with really strong body odor, starting off really strong with that one. I actually really liked her at first because she was really quiet and always reading, and whenever she did talk, she would say something funny. She would often laugh to herself, but I didn't mind that at first. I honestly thought it was just endearing. One day, a new female guest arrived at this hostel, and my roommates told me that this new girl was from her hometown and that they were arch enemies. She told me to follow her up to the room when she started blaring Gonna Make You Sweat, Everybody Dance Now. Everyone knows that song. Everybody dance now, but super annoying. So that nobody could hear us talking, and then proceeded to tell me that this woman had followed her from Bulgaria to the Netherlands to sabotage her academic career, ? That's when I began to realize that something was wrong with this girl. I'll include the rest in the form of a list, so here we go. She continued to tell me that new guests were people from her hometown who had followed her to the Netherlands to spy on her or pursue her romantically, even though she was clearly the only Bulgarian guest in the hostel. Weird. She claimed to be a student like me, but she never attended classes or had any homework. Not that it was any of my business, but I thought it was worth including. Also weird. She told me that she was in an arranged marriage with a man that lived in Amsterdam and would travel to visit him on weekends. When she would come back, I would ask her how it went, and she would tell me that she didn't see him because he was avoiding her. Her English wasn't great, so I couldn't figure out where she was staying on these weekend trips or why she continued to embark on them, even though this guy seemed to want nothing to do with her. I really wonder if this person even existed. Like, that's so strange. While I was studying, she would sit in a chair and watch me. Sometimes she would get a knife and a cutting board and start chopping fruit, and I could see in my peripheral vision that she was watching me as she chopped the fruit. Creepy. She would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning on occasion and turn the light on and just sit on her bed laughing maniacally. Honestly, I don't have anything to say about that one. That's just weird. Sometimes I would get depressed. I felt really overwhelmed from being alone in a foreign country where I lived in a hostel. I can only imagine. I would just lay in the fetal position in my bed and cry. My roommate would try to comfort me by kneeling on the floor next to my bed and reading an encyclopedia to me. It was sweet, but also really bizarre. She would never use the internet or any device that connected to the internet. One time, I accidentally left my cell phone on her side of the room and went to sleep. When she came in the room, she aggressively woke me up and yelled, "What is this telephone?" instead of just putting it closer to me. I think she thought it was some sort of recording device. A little bit creepy there, too. She was constantly telling me how brilliant she was and going on about how she was so much better than all of her peers in Bulgaria, who were, according to her, illiterate and poor. She would refer to them as, quote, illiterate lab sheep, which is such a horribly mean thing to say, but also what a funny insult. Like, lab sheep. I don't know. She told me that I was taking her out to sushi to celebrate her birthday 2 days after her birthday. I told her that I was super poor and I couldn't afford to do that, and she stormed out of the room. And that is it for that one. However, I don't even really know what to think about this. Honestly, I just think that there was something probably going on mental health-wise with this roommate. Why she was there is like super weird. I have no idea what she could have been doing in that hostel if she wasn't going to classes or studying, but to each his own, and I'm glad that nothing bad happened other than just some creepy occurrences. Okay, so this next one is another strange roommate story, and we're going to call this one Why You Should Never Find Roommates on Craigslist. I feel like that's not something that you should have to tell people, but that's just my opinion, and I would never look for a roommate on Craigslist, but okay. This one is coming from Modern Moonlight, and it was written about 3 years ago. So here goes. I told this one in another post, and will probably be buried, but hey, it's therapeutic letting it all out. Very true. I had a really nice roommate that was moving out. It was an off time for rentals, so we were having trouble finding someone on Craigslist. Then a woman responded, and since we were desperate, I said, just give it to her. I texted her asking her when she would be moving in, and I never got an answer. A few days later, after the roommate moved out, I'm in bed and I hear the front door open. It's this new woman who never told me when I should expect her. She and her friend moved a mountain of stuff into the living room and a slightly smaller mountain of stuff into her bedroom. She didn't bother putting any of it away for about a month until I mentioned my mom would be visiting. Now that is a great first impression if I've ever heard one. I only lived with her for 2 months, and the whole time it was sheer hell. She was about my mom's age, and she reeked of, get ready for this one, stale urine. Ew. Like I'd get the dry heaves just walking through the living room. Oh my god, that's so bad. I tried spraying air freshener, but she complained when I did. So I just stayed holed up in my room with the door closed. That's awful. I nicely let her borrow a blanket, and it smelled so bad after I took it to be dry cleaned, and the guy there asked me if someone peed on it. Oh my god, that's so disgusting. Ugh, okay. What else? She turned the living room into her own personal office and would play church music loudly all day, starting early in the morning when I was still asleep. Weren't there like other apartments in this place? Like people weren't complaining about that? I came home from work one night and found our front door unlocked with her inside. I asked why the door was unlocked, and she said, quote, "I'm afraid of locking myself out." I angrily told her our door needed to be locked at all times because, for crap's sake, we live in a city. Yeah, definitely you need to have the doors locked. Oh my goodness. Okay. Took me telling her this several times before she finally did it. So not only that, now she's just like creating this totally unsafe environment and she smells. Ugh. She also helped herself to my stash of tea bags without asking. I hid them in my closet after that. I also found crumbs in the bathroom and learned she was eating in there. Ew. Oh my god. Okay. Ew. When I confronted her about this, she laughed at me. She had to fill out an application with building management to be added to the lease and never did. When I asked her to, all she said was, quote, "I don't have a printer." She worked at a local university, so I don't get why she couldn't just print it there. She paid her first month's rent and utilities and then just stopped. She was always full of excuses, but the one that she usually gave was she just spent hundreds of dollars renewing her passport, so she couldn't afford rent. Then she just outright refused to pay, saying that the apartment was unsafe because there wasn't enough windows. We were technically a basement unit. I couldn't take it anymore. I tried to get her evicted, but it didn't work. Thankfully, the building management company was very helpful, and they let me just break the lease and leave. I don't get that because it seems like she wasn't on the lease, but whatever. She stuck around, I guess basically squatting because she wouldn't pay, and they eventually did evict her. Probably a good thing. I am never using Craigslist to find a roommate again. Whew, okay, that's a fun one. That's absolutely disgusting. I'm just really wondering how, like, if they live in a basement apartment, obviously there's more apartments in the building. Like, how did other people not hear the music or, like, smell her or just get upset? I don't even know. That's horrible. I feel really bad for this person, but at least it's a good lesson learned. Never use Craigslist to find a roommate. And since this is a true crime podcast, there are definitely a couple of crimes that are occurring within here. Her refusal to pay, her just like randomly showing up is really strange. I don't know if that's illegal. I feel like it's not, but still it should be. And like stealing other people's stuff and just creating this super unsafe environment is just so bad. I can't even, I'm so happy that I've never had to live with somebody like that. Oh my gosh. All right, so this next one is actually really bad. It comes from the 2 Hot Takes subreddit, and on that subreddit, it's titled, "Roommate Situation Has Escalated. Things Are Getting Real and Scary." And this one's actually coming from only about 5 months ago. So here we go. "Hi, everyone. I'm curious about what your take on this situation is. I have no idea what to do from here, and I could use some guidance or help collecting my thoughts. I live in Washington State. In May, I moved in with my now former best friend. I couldn't afford to live on my own due to the cost of living and some different life events. We had been living peacefully and happily until about a month ago. She tells me on 12/29, so this would be December of last year, that she needs me to move out by March because her sister needs the room. I was surprised by this, but I understand that family comes first and her sister might need the space more than I did, which is really nice of her to be that understanding. I would be a little upset, honestly. A week later, she tells me her sister's move has been postponed to September. I had already found a place in another home that would be a good fit for myself and for my pets, and I didn't want to risk losing a safe place just to have to go through it again in 6 months, so I let her know that I was still planning to move out in February. And I've already read this story, so I kind of know what's going to happen from here, but I just want to say that's a totally normal thing to do, especially if you have pets. It's really hard to find somewhere to rent, especially if you're renting a room in someone else's house, if you have pets and they're okay with it. So I totally understand that it could be really frustrating to continue that search, especially with a limited budget too and all of that stuff. So I don't think this is bad that she's still planned to move out in February, but her best friend doesn't take it very well. So let's continue. Things were a little shaky and awkward in the house for a bit, but we were still cohabiting peacefully enough. We'd been friends for 11 years, so at that time I figured we would just hash it out at some point when we were both more comfortable. I work from home, so the day that I was told I could stay until September, I was kicked out of the home during work hours to accommodate a romantic guest that she was having visit from out of state. This girlfriend flipped her shit when she found out I'd be home and crossed paths with them while she was visiting. Oh my gosh. I thought it was a little weird and entitled of her to demand, but ended up leaving just to avoid any fights about it. That's probably a good idea. This person seems unstable. I came home on Sunday, took care of my roommate's dog, and was again kicked out on Tuesday night because this person came back into town, and again, she wanted me gone. Which literally makes no sense. She doesn't even know this person. I don't get that. But anyway, last week on Sunday, I get a 10-minute warning that my roommate was going to throw out the mattress that I intended to sleep on. It was her mattress that I was borrowing, So other than being hurt that she was going to take the mattress just hours before I was supposed to go to bed that night, just for it to sit out in the rain all night while I slept on the floor, a disposal company was picking up the mattress the following morning. I did figure that it was her property and she could dispose of it if she wanted to. She gave me the option to take care of it when I moved out, but I just don't have the resources to be able to pay someone to take it or find a truck and have someone help me dispose of it myself. Monday night, I started to pack and move out. I took trashing the mattress as a clear sign that I wasn't welcome to stay anymore. I got as much as I could with my car and let her know that I would be back the following day to get the rest of my things. When I come back, the locks had been changed and I couldn't get in to get my things. I had taken time off both Monday and Tuesday to accomplish this move out, but I still had to come back on Wednesday while she was home before my shift started. I couldn't take the bigger furniture items and she wouldn't communicate with me when I could come get them until Saturday night. She let me know that I could come back on Sunday morning. Which also, make it make sense. I thought she wanted her gone, but she doesn't want her to come back and get her stuff. Really? That Tuesday, she also told me essentially that I was dirty, smelly, and ungrateful of the favor that she was doing by letting me live here. So rude. I don't get this at all. Why is she so mad? I paid rent while I was there, about $800, which I think is a pretty standard rate for renting rooms in the area. I'm paying $765 where I'm at currently. She's claiming that I damaged property, tried to break in, and that there is pet damage. When I had 2 people in to help me, they told me the only thing they could smell was dog pee. I have cats, the dog is hers. And I'm going to interject again here. I don't know how these people decided that what they were smelling was dog pee, because I've had cats and dogs and I don't think they smell any different. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I broke some of my own mugs while I moved out the last bit, and I also had a TV mount up on the wall, which I did have permission to do. We didn't have a formal lease agreement either, but I paid rent in full each month. I never would have taken advantage of her in this situation, nor would I wanted to mooch off of her. I thought that she knew me better than that, to be honest. We had a verbal agreement that I would pay her for the month of January in installments, because the day that she asked me to move out, I had a negative balance on my bank account and needed to be able to put the money I do have towards a new place. She agreed to this, and I gave her a time frame, told her it would be paid back to her by March. Today, she handed my phone number out to at least 2 people, which I guess are just kind of random people, I'm not sure, who texted me to tell me that I either had to pay the rent in full for January or that I would be taken to small claims court for the cost of replacing the carpet, despite all of the new events that occurred after we agreed I would pay her back in installments, like being locked out or unable to access my home for around 12 days of the month. Now here's where it gets a little wilder. This girlfriend called both my sister and I 21 times in the span of 2 hours and texted us collectively about 8 times during that time frame. That's ridiculous. These are very hostile, threatening text messages. My roommate contacted a guy I met on Bumble and went out with once a month ago, and I hadn't done more than just screenshot his profile or maybe mention his first name to her. I couldn't even find him on social media myself. The girlfriend is now threatening physical assault and has created a fake Facebook account using my Facebook profile and full name to message my friends and family to tell them that I owe someone money, or to air out my dirty laundry, or to tell some secrets. I'm not actually sure what the contents of these messages are at this point because no one has reached out to me about it. So now this crazy girlfriend is isolating her from her family, which is crazy. I deleted all social media profiles, didn't reply or engage anyone who contacted me regarding this issue. Honestly, I'm pretty freaked out and uncomfortable. I don't know if she knows my address or what she'll do next, and I don't feel safe. I wouldn't. I don't think this girl is stable. My former best friend is also a police officer. I forgot about that part. So her passing out my phone number in order to have other people harass me on her behalf feels like some kind of ethical concern. Yeah, I think that's also a legal concern, to be totally honest. I don't know what information she's sharing to give these people ammunition to continue to harass me. The only reason I hadn't paid her rent yet for the month of January is because I put all my money towards my new deposit, and then I had to pay rent at the new place for the time in January I spent there while trying to get out of this crazy situation, which, by the way, is a situation that this former best friend created. This is all her fault. I'm so blown away by this. Then, after all the erratic behavior with almost no explanation from her until after the fact, I wasn't sure if my rights as a tenant had been violated, and I wasn't sure if I should pay for the whole month. I don't think you should pay for any of it at this point. This is, insane. Sorry for the long post, just wanted to be really clear about what was happening. I'm not sure where to go from here. As I mentioned above, I've been friends with her for 11 years, and this behavior has completely blindsided me. Thank you for reading, if you got this far. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack here. I don't even really know where to start. True crime wise, because again, this is a true crime podcast, there is obviously some stalking going on here, and I'm really concerned for the person who wrote this. I'm not sure that they are safe. I would feel really uncomfortable that this person is going out of their way to contact friends and family and impersonating you on social media. That's really, really scary. So, this is definitely a roommate from hell. I can't even imagine. This is just so crazy. I honestly feel like it just came out of nowhere. So it's just really weird. All right. I think let's move on from this one. We're going to do a couple of creepy palate cleansers, some paranormal roommates. So this story comes from 1LT Obvious. I'm not really sure about that, but it was posted about 6 years ago. So we're going to call this story Uninvited Roommates. I lived in a house that seemed to be haunted by doppelgangers. Every event that happened never involved some mysterious figure, but a known person being in a place where they should not have been. Here are a few examples. I was a teenager at the time, and I was instant messaging my girlfriend at the time with my webcam turned on. I had the viewer up so that I could see myself in the webcam. Behind me, there was the stairs leading up left of the camera view and the entrance to the living room, which was right of the camera view. My younger sister would typically fall asleep every night on the couch in front of the TV and make her way up to bed in the middle of the night. At one point in my webcam view, I saw my sister leave the living room and go up the stairs. The thing that struck me as weird was that I didn't hear anything. This was an older Victorian house, so the wooden floor and stairs were loud as hell. Without saying anything to my girlfriend, I got up and just looked into the living room, and there was my sister, passed out on the couch. Creepy. I sat back down and asked my girlfriend if she had seen anything in my camera, and she said, "Yeah, I just saw your sister go upstairs." No, I don't know that much about doppelgangers, but that's really scary, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Next one, my family was all getting ready to go somewhere. I was sitting in the car with my mom, and we were waiting on my sister who was still in the house. After a bit, she comes out and gets in the car and just looks at me like, what the hell? I ask her what's wrong, and she says that just before she walked out of the house, she thought that I was still inside, so she yelled up the stairs, "OP, we're leaving," and apparently I, in quotation marks, yelled back, "Okay, I'll be down in a minute." Ooh, that's weird. So there is an edit to this story too. There's some more examples since many people have asked. I did put some of these in a response lower, but I'll add them here for visibility. My mom woke up to someone tapping her foot, and she said that someone was standing at the edge of her bed who faded out after a couple seconds. She said it looked like me. Ooh, that one gave me chills a little bit. I had an encounter where I woke up and felt like someone was under my covers laying up against me. When I said something, my blanket visibly deflated and I no longer felt anything. I include this with doppelgangers because though I didn't see what I felt under the blanket, it laid like my girlfriend would have laid against me. When I was 22, I was in the military and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It still took like a year after the diagnosis to separate from the military, but I went home on leave for the holidays about a month after my diagnosis. Anyone that has insulin-dependent diabetes typically carries around some sort of kit, so mine is a black zip-up pouch and has a glucometer, insulin pen, needles, and alcohol pads. Right after I left home to head back from leave, my mom texts me to ask if I'm missing my diabetic kit. I look and I'm not. She sends me a picture of a diabetic kit and asks if I know it. I've never seen this kit before in my life. Apparently, my sister went into her bedroom and discovered it outside of her window, propped up like someone had set it there. Oh, also, her bedroom is on the second floor, and no one else knows that I have diabetes. Okay, that's another one. That's like really weird. I can't explain that. Like something tangible being left behind by someone that... Oh, that's really creepy. I don't even know. Like, I've got nothing to say to that one. All right. We've got one more story before we wrap things up here. So this next one is going to be called The Roommate Who Never Left. And it comes from Twig Snapper on Reddit from about 6 years ago. My uncle's house is out on a very eastern part of New York and was said to be haunted due to the family that used to own it in the 1800s. They decided not to give it to the stableman and they sold it instead. So the stableman and the maid were said to have haunted the place. We always used to joke that you would hear people or things moving at night, but since the house is so old, we really just kind of laughed it off. My uncle's friend had her and her sister stay over the house one night, and the friend noticed a maid bringing towels down the stairs when she woke up. She then saw the maid again bringing what looked like a percolator down the stairs. She was so impressed by my uncle hiring staff. He is a neurologist in New York City, so he had a habit of spending a little bit extra sometimes. She went back to bed, and when she woke up, went downstairs to see my uncle and his friend just chatting. She asked where the maid went, and she thought that the maid was cooking breakfast. My uncle had no idea what she was talking about and asked what she looked like. The sister explained, and he laughed, walked her to the living room, and pointed to an old picture. She said that was the woman. My uncle replied, "Yep, she's been dead for about 100 years. That one's creepy too. I always find like anything with an old picture to be really eerie for some reason. Like those old black and whites, I don't know, something about them just really get me. Oh, wow. All right. Well, that is all that I have got for you today. So thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crime Bistro podcast and for listening to the first episode of the brand new Coffee Chat series. If you've got a story of your own to share, I would absolutely love to hear it. So visit the website at crimebistro.com and you just might hear it read on the next episode. With that, though, this episode is coming to a close, so thanks again, and as always, until next time.